Because remember, the current IEBC is going to be there for only 2 years and elections are online. Did Kenyans take you there to go and start fighting the boardroom? Kenyans took you there to deliver a credible election. Can you focus on the mandate you're supposed to do? So more of synergy creation.
Thanks so much. The last question for me, from the recommendation of the Krieger report, they recommended that the professional body of IEBC, like the secretariat, to be very independent. Do you think it's practically possible? Because Krieger report to professionalize election management by making the secretariat fully independent in its operation duties. Do you think such recommendation is practically possible in our current situation?
I remember, and Dr. Koki, you can remember this, we used to have a discussion sometimes back when we were disbanding ECK. And the reason why we disbanded ECK is practically what you are saying. Eh? And we said that even the name must change from Electoral Commission of Kenya to independent. And we came to double IEBC, and we were fighting with that issue of independent. Now we have IEBC, we're still fighting with the aspect of the I, the independence. So for me, from the old school thinking, as long as you have the law, and the law prescribes you to be independent, then you are independent. It's the responsibility, therefore, of the chairman.
Sorry, you didn't get my question. I'm saying the Krieger report recommended to the secretariat of IPC to be independent on its own. Is it practically possible from where you sit?
I was actually coming there, but I was taking a longer route. So you can't, I think it's very difficult. In my view, it's very, very difficult to have the secretariat independent from who? Are we saying there are some recommendations are normally given in reports, but these recommendations sometimes are superfluous. You can't say that a secretariat to be independent from who? Why do you want to be independent in the first place as a secretariat? I think it's the organization, the whole organization, the secretariat and the commission that should be independent.
Thanks so much. I agree with you because it's actually the commissioners who are responsible, who take charge, and who are answerable to the Kenyans. Thanks so much, and I wish you well.
Thank you, Evans. We now move to Fatuma Saman to ask questions, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Kissinger, is it okay to call you that?
I was named after Henry Kissinger, the former U.S. Secretary of State. Okay. So I pride myself to be called Kissinger.
Okay, good to know. If you look at the recent years, public trust in IEBC has been dwindling. And so if you get an opportunity to become the chair, what are these things you'll do, or rather initiatives that you'll put in place to ensure that the institution wins back public confidence?
Thank you. Trust will always be a challenge to any EMB. We have a trust deficit, a trust issue with the IEBC. Some of the practical things we can do is increased stakeholder engagement. You need to bring together all the stakeholders in the electoral processes and discuss and come up with practical solutions on how do we deal with this issue of trust. Because once you don't have trust, then it will challenge you with the issue of credibility of the election. Number two, you need to have a very strong communication team or communication strategy. What is it that you are doing You need to be as transparent as possible. You need to open your doors and your windows to everybody, every voter, every Kenyan to understand what you're doing. You need to communicate. You need to be felt. You need to be everywhere. That's the only way you increase the issue of trust. The electoral processes, again, from beginning of voter registration, you need to be very transparent. If members of the public are saying the voter register is not proper, is not updated, explain to them. Increase their trust. Explain to them why the voter register is not updated. Tell them and give them very practical solutions what you are going to do as an IEBC to have a proper voter register, because a critical document when you're going to the election. Voter education, you need to explain to them. So that trust issue entirely means you need to enhance it through those mechanisms that I've talked about. But more important is communication. You need to be trusted before that voter goes to an electoral process.
Just as a follow-up, how do you balance between independence and stakeholder engagement? Because there are, of course, stakeholders that if you do not engage wisely, the institution may lose its independence. So how do you balance between them?
And unfortunately, when you are working in the realm of elections, you must have a stakeholder engagement, because it's the stakeholder engagement that gives you the trust issue that we are talking about previously. So you must have stakeholder engagement. And luckily for us, we have even legislated the stakeholder engagement. That's why PPLC exists, to bring these parties together. And also situations arise when all voters want to engage with you. But when you are engaging with the stakeholders, you are limiting yourself only to the process of election. You are limiting yourself only to the transparency of the election. You are limiting to yourself of only the gaps that exist in the process that you want to fix with the help of those stakeholders. For example, if you are going into an election and you don't involve critical stakeholders like women organizations or PWDs or minorities, you will have a problem. But now, how you limit that engagement to independence is that you allow the engagement to take place, but you go back and say, I am independent and I'll only stick to what the law says that I must do. And therefore, you will give me, as a stakeholder, you will give me input, but that input, if it will compromise the independence, then I will not do it.
Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Nicodemus Bore, do you want to engage the candidate?
Thank you, Chair. Kissinger, in when you are describing your CV and yourself, you said you are a reformer, and would wish to tell this honorable panelists an area in which you have really taken up on reforms, and in case you get the opportunity to serve as a chair of IEBC, what kind of reforms will you bring forth to the commission?
Thank you very much. Yes, I am a reformer. And I must have mentioned that I also worked in human rights for a very long period of time. And human rights and reform are brothers, cousins. In the judiciary, one of the biggest reform program that I was engaged in is the Judicial Transformation Project. And I had mentioned to it previously, which was a US funded, World Bank funded project that transformed that judiciary to where it is. I pride myself for that, and nobody can take that away from me. When it comes to other reforms, I said that I was in the GIZ, the German Technical Corporation. My work was basically reform based in the sense that you follow up laws which have not been enacted and you ensure you enact. And we are supporting the Ministry of Justice at the time with a lot of reforms during the GJ laws and supporting the ethics and anti-corruption with combating corruption on laws on corruption. That is reform-based. When it comes to, if I happen to go to Iebc, what reforms will I do? One, have a desk, recruit a person, or if there's there's a legal department there, have a desk in the legal department. Have someone follow up on legislation, policies, and reforms that are pending, that have been enacted in Parliament or that are pending somewhere and so forth, and have them in place. For example, that we spoke about the issues of boundary. We don't have a law on boundary delimitation, but the law is somewhere in the Senate still being worked on. So can we talk to the senator who has proposed that law for boundary delimitation, Senator Kajwang? Can we tell him to speed it up, and what requirements does he require? Because we are critical stakeholders in this electoral process. Number two, the law says we should have an Iebc fund, a fund which can change the dynamics of elections in this country, because it will allow basically voters to be properly educated, because you can seek funds from other stakeholders. Can we have this in place as a reform mechanism? So these are some of the basic things in terms of reform that can assist the Iebc. Policies and regulations. We spoke about regulations which are not in place, they're lying there or they're supposed to be done. That is the critical work in terms of doing these elections. So some of those reforms are the ones that I will pioneer and I'll push for with the help of the Secretariat and other commissioners.
I thank you for answering that. You said you worked very closely with EACC on reforms and doing laws that help in anti-corruption. In the year 2020, it's in the public domain that EACC recommended the prosecution of former Chief Justice. Was it Chief Justice or Chief Registrar? And among the people who EACC recommended for prosecution was also your name. Maybe you give us a little background on what had transpired. And in the same time, this position you are seeking requires confidence in the public. So with that, a little bit of interruption by EACC on your reform agenda, can you please give a little background on what transpired and whether you are cleared or not?
Thank you very much for that question. When I was at that institution, and as I said before, we pioneered a program called the Judicial Performance Project Program. And there was a lot going on. And we moved in at a time when the new constitution had actually come into place. And therefore, we are pioneering reforms in the judiciary. Some of the things we were dealing with were issues of computerization of the entire judiciary. The other things we were doing or dealing with in that project was the issue of construction of courts across the country. And we had a target, said we want to have about 47 courts in each county. For now, they have them in each county. That was the project. In the process, and this project had a lot of financial scrutiny. In the process of implementing that project, there was a lot of miscommunication. There was a lot of discommunication, disinformation. People didn't understand what was going on. So when there were issues or investigations touching on one of the courts that had not been constructed, the investigating agencies heard about it and moved into the institution. Fortunately, there was pure miscommunication because that particular court had been constructed in a different site. So when that happened, of course, challenges like that arise, and we learn lessons from that. The correct information was given to them, and eventually that claim was dropped. And I have given the ruling and supplied the ruling, which clearly says that. So that is what happened. So in terms of loss of money, there was no loss of money, and it's in the public domain. In terms of whether that court was constructed, yes, it was constructed, and they know where it is. So that is what happens. But I must say, in public service, you serve, and while you are serving, you don't understand what will hit you. The only thing that can save you in public service is doing the right thing. Sticking with the law, staying with the law. Rumor can come up in public service to completely finish your career. But in the eventuality, in the long run, rumor twists and turns, but truth stays straight and narrow. In the eventuality, I was vindicated because the court is there.
So it wasn't about a palatial home for the Chief Justice. It was about a court.
There was that issue of the court that I've explained. There was also the issue that arose about the house. And eventually, the only claim at the time about that, and it's good that I talk about it, the only claim at that time that that house had been purchased without a cabinet memo. For purchase of a house at the time, you needed a cabinet memo from the president. We had just come into that institution with the exit of President Iebc. This was the new administration. Government documents, when there's change of government, takes forever to get them. When that memo eventually was established and found where it was, it spoke the truth. What the management was doing was only implementing what the cabinet memo by the former president had said. But because there was change of government, there was no memo to be traced. We had a challenge with that. But eventually, that was also withdrawn.
Thank you, Chair.
So, Bwana Kakai, were you dismissed from the judiciary or you left at will?
When you are serving public service and such kind of allegations come in, definitely you will be told to go. Thank you. Until you are cleared.
So as an advocate, after clearance, did you seek redress?
At that time, I decided to forgive because some of those things were done by people I didn't understand. But because I'm a Christian, I forgave. And I moved on and started doing other things, including these election issues. So I forgave them.
So in the records in Kenya, is that you have been dismissed for gross misconduct, for violating public procurement law in Kenya?
No, that will not be the law. That will not be the thinking, that will not be the understanding. I was not dismissed on those grounds.
What were the grounds?
When that happened, they said that everybody must go and processes must take place and procurement and the EACC must come in and do the investigations and so forth and so on. So then, ideally, everybody was then let to go. And that's what happened, and I
checking your documents, there are some rulings that you've put in your documents, and those rulings were, I think there are two rulings, one at the Magistrates Court and another one at the High Court. And actually, it was about withdrawal of the case by DPP. But I've not heard you mention anything about it, or that's a different case from what my colleague had just asked.
Oh, thank you.
It's not clear what you're explaining and
Okay.
what the documentation that you've submitted.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I think what I've submitted are two rulings. And those two rulings were the ones that withdrew those criminal cases that were there. The ones that I spoke about, the CJ House and also the Mavoko Court. Those are the rulings that I've submitted. And that's the ruling that came from the High Court when the cases were withdrawn. And they're on record.
Okay, Caro, do you want to engage a bit?
Yes, Chairman, thank you. So, Mr. Kakai, the cases were withdrawn under Section 210? Or on what basis did the DPP withdraw the cases?
At the time when the cases were withdrawn, there was a lot of investigations that had taken place. And then the DPP moved the court saying that he wants those cases withdrawn. And that's under what the circumstance under which the DPP withdrew those cases. And when you look at that ruling, it explains under what circumstances the DPP withdrew that case. So it was withdrawn.
Chair, let me follow again. Now, you will note in those rulings that it is not about, they were withdrawn on the basis of that judgment of Engineer Kamau, the EACC investigating. So it's not about the culpability. It is the fact that EACC, when they were investigating, they were not properly constituted as a commission. So, and I hear you are saying you are acquitted, you didn't want to follow it up. So kindly clear or clarify for us.
Thank you. It happened 10 years ago. This is an issue that happened 10 years ago in 2015. And when we went to court, of course, we defended ourselves. And eventually, after about almost all witnesses had actually testified. And at that time, in his wisdom, and looking at Engineer Kamau's case, because that was an active case at the time, in his opinion, then the DPP felt that he would withdraw those allegations. For the last 10 years, since the withdrawal of those cases, I've not had any complaint, I've not had anything from them. There's no active case, in short, that is existing in court.
Okay, thank you. Professor Adams Olo.
Thank you, Chair. Kakai Kissinger, I've had occasion to work with you in some projects. You can see how members have come up to inquire on these cases against you. And they're doing so because a person who wants to be an Iebc chairperson, or if that person becomes the Iebc chairperson, they usually face intense scrutiny. And you can see the questions are coming because all these responses you have given, or all the questions that would have been asked, would not have been asked if during your introduction, when you talked about your tenure in the judiciary,
if you had come up openly and said that I left the judiciary in this manner, because the only thing you talked about and repeated was the reforms you brought, all that. But when it comes to where there was some cloud, you remained silent. Yet IEBC is an institution that has low trust, as you told us. And therefore, with all these questions that have come, and with all the clarifications that you have had to make, as you sit there as Kakai Kissinger, if the panelists are having questions, you can rest assured Kenyans are also having questions. Look at them and tell them why, despite all those clouds on integrity, they still should trust you to be the IEBC chairman.
Thank you very much. My integrity is unquestionable. My integrity is unquestionable. I have worked in public service and I worked in that judiciary. I left that judiciary with my understanding that I was a victim, with my understanding that you can be in a place of work and something hits you without knowing where that thing came from. Not all public officers, ladies and gentlemen, not all public officers who are dragged and taken to court are guilty of what they're accused of. Remember, I was a deputy. Remember, I was doing my functions to the best of my ability. If I knew by any insights or any reason that I have a questionable integrity question, then I wouldn't have applied. I applied knowing very well, with clarity of mind, that I'll walk the path of truth. That I'll come here, I knew I was coming, I applied. I'll come here and tell the panel what transpired. I liked what Chairman said when we began this conversation, and he said, this is a conversation. And indeed, it has turned out to be a conversation, and it's part of the conversation. Kenyans should never, never, never accuse or hear something has happened to somebody and think that that person is associated with that thing. It's called the pitfalls of public service. So my integrity is unquestionable, and even before the eyes of God.
Thank you. In your previous leadership roles, and there are many, can you tell the panel the 3 challenges that you overcame and that will be relevant to your role as chairperson of the IEBC, and how you navigated and solved those challenges? Don't have to be 3. If it is only 1, also you can just tell us 1.
One of the biggest challenges that I've ever faced in my career and how I navigated around them was the issue of reforms that I was working on in the governance sector. It was very difficult during the GGL loss to push through any idea of reforms without going through a lot of bottlenecks. So that reform issue was a big challenge. How did I, and yet you want to reform because you want something to help you achieve what you want to achieve for the good of the country. So in GGL laws under the then Ministry of Justice, what we did was to enlarge stakeholder consultation on those issues of reform, enlarge the capital, and explain to them the importance of these very salient reforms. So it's through enlargement of stakeholder engagement and communication that we were able to navigate that issue of reforms. That is the main obstacle that I engaged and how I managed it.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Do you have some quick questions you want to ask, or you want to allow me to follow up on something he has said?
Maybe you follow up?
Yes,
or
let me follow up, then you
then I come from the.
I have a reference here from one called Gladys J. Boss, who claims that she knew you as she was a deputy chief executive officer at IEC, and that time you're working for GIZ, and that between 2011 and 2014, you worked under her as a deputy chief registrar of the judiciary. And says that while I was the chief registrar of the judiciary at that time, during your tenure, she says, as the deputy registrar of judiciary, Mr. Kakai Kissinger was allocated with overall duties and responsibilities, including day-to-day management of the judiciary, with the responsibility of overseeing this number of staff, employees, and external fundraising of projects. And she confirms that you managed what you have said, the Judicial Performance and Improvement Program, and recommends you highly, but seems to commend you in the things you have said, indeed, but seems to indicate, even though you have said you were a deputy, and that this matter that we have talked about, you seem to have had good responsibility and oversight over. And so I think for me, as sitting where I am, it will have been prudent for you to seek a judicial remedy, so that this is not a matter that is going to follow you if you seek a position in public service, because the matter remains documented, and it's not a good record for you. And for the position that you are seeking, we are required to be able to do due diligence over such matters. And you being an advocate of the High Court, then you should be able to seek remedy. But Carol has her hand up. I want to hear what she wants to say.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Kakai, allow me to just follow up on a small issue from the court decision. I've had the chance to look at it, and yes, it's true that the court did allow the DPP to withdraw the case against you and your co-accused in that matter. Now, two things come to my mind. Number one, we have had a candidate who came here yesterday and told us that as a panel, as the selection panel that is recommending persons for appointment as chairperson and members of the Iebc, we should be looking for a candidate that, in his words, is like a Caesar's wife, beyond reproach. It's a very high standard of ethics and integrity, if you look at it in that way. Now, it is a fact that indeed, at one point in your life, the EACC recommended to the DPP for your prosecution. It is also a fact that the DPP agreed with the findings and recommendations of the EACC and actually charged you in court. Sadly, that process did not come to an end because of perhaps a technical issue with the composition of the EACC. So as I sit here now, I am not able to say whether or not these alleged serious allegations about public finance, public procurement, and abuse of office allegations against you were established and or not. So your name is still being dragged into the mud. So my concern is, since 2017, when the withdrawal happened, I hear you when you say that the EACC, the DPP, has not taken any other action. There has been public outcry out there on the DPP's processes for withdrawal. So I just need to get your comment and clarification on whether or not there could have been political interferences. And I'm saying this very respectful and with very minded of who your co-accused persons were in that matter and the spaces they occupy today. Could there have been any political interferences why, subsequent to the constitution of the EACC, no other charges or any steps were taken? And what do you say about the fact that these allegations continue to follow you 10 years later, as you say?
I don't, thank you very much for that question. I do not think, I'm not a politician, I can't speak on behalf of a politician, but I do not think that there was any political interference. As I explained earlier, the issues that arose at that time was pure miscommunication and not understanding what happened, and the EACC moved in. So I wouldn't think that there's any issue that political interference has happened, because this, as I said again, happened 10 years ago. In terms of the approach and in terms of my understanding to the process that took place, and I said and I repeat, we had gone through all the witnesses. And at the time when now EACC DPP was withdrawing, most of the witnesses had taken stand. And they knew clearly where the case was going to go. And they could see, because now the evidence was sufficient enough. I said, yeah, and I repeat again, I am a person of high integrity. And I might have happened to be in a place at the wrong time, but that doesn't question my integrity at all. It is the only thing that, you can be in a right place, but at the wrong time, some bad luck, but I have got no question or no doubt about my integrity.
Thank you, Mr. Kisinja, for that assurance, and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Tanwi, if you don't have something to follow up, I will let Adams go.
Yeah.
I think he does have something to.
He has not answered your question, Chair. You ask him, if it were you, you would look for remedy. And we didn't hear, what is your comment? I mean, you decide to leave it that way and forgive?
I said, and I'll repeat, the turmoil I went through at that time. I will repeat, I'm a Christian. The turmoil I went through at that time. What those cases took me through, I turned to God and I forgave them.
Okay, Professor Adams.
Thank you, Kakai Kisinja. From the presentations you have made, it's very clear that you're somebody who really understands the global electoral experiences. I think more than 8 and counting, where you have done either observation or been an expert. Globally, list the 3 conventional electoral systems that countries apply and tell us which one of those that are applied conventionally globally does Kenya use?
I'll mention 2. We have the civil and political rights as a convention.
No. I'm talking of electoral systems.
Okay. On the electoral system, we have the first past the post, winner take it all. That is what we are using in Kenya. We have the mixed proportional representation. That is another legal system that can be used.
Okay. sorry for that. In Kenya, for one to be declared the president, what is the threshold for you to be declared president-elect?
One, you definitely contested. Number two, you got 50% plus one of the votes that were cast. Then you also got 25% in terms of about 25% or something in several counties, in 25 counties.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kissinger. It's been a great pleasure listening to you, learning, indeed, the true sense from your experience and from the great work that you have done globally and on the continent. You have certainly had a mark on these electoral processes in this continent, and we want to thank you for that, and thank you for expressing your interest in this position. We have finished our questions to you, but I don't know whether you have any question that you would like to ask us or any comment.
Thank you. I will only have a comment. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to present myself and to showcase my passion for elections and what I'll be able to contribute. I don't take this for granted. I thank you all for that opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You have a bottle of water before you. Feel free to carry it and use it. And remember to pick your documents. They are with us somewhere. One of us should be able to give them to you. Okay, they are somewhere there. Thank you and God bless you. Wishing you well. Thank you.